Welcome to this video where we're going to be producing something like this. This is the end result of what you're about to see. This is my little hardware quiz, and I've put together some mysterious pictures of different bits of computer hardware. And the idea is that you can go in and tap in what you think that object is. Well, of course, it's a close-up of a mouse, and you can type that in and the computer automatically tells us that's correct. Notice with an active score as well. That just went from 5 to 6 if you didn't notice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewind back, and then we're going to have a go at seeing how this is produced, and you can try producing one of these of your own. So here we go back in time. Join me at the beginning and we'll start building. Now for this quiz we're going to have alternately pictures and then a gap and then pictures and then a gap, and I want the gaps to be nice and small and the areas for the pictures to be nice and wide. So it won't surprise you that we're going to be using this line between the columns to drag and resize. But we want to make sure that all of our columns with the pictures are the same size. Now when we resized a bunch of columns before, we kind of selected them all together like this, but we actually want to select alternate columns. The way we do that is to press the first column, and then we hold the very corner key on the keyboard, the control key, and that allows us to select any column that we want to use. So here I'm selecting 5 columns, but not 5 columns right together. I'm selecting 5 alternate columns. So we're going to resize these to make them big enough to contain a picture. I'm going to go for 150 pixels just so I remember what that number is. I can use the same approach, just clicking on the columns with the control key pressed down, and then make the gaps in between really narrow. So in this case I'm going to drop that down to just 15 pixels. So I'm going to have a title in the first row, and then I'm going to have a gap. So again, I'm just going to work out a size that I want for my image. Now this is where we're going to be typing in the guess, and then we'll have a response here saying correct or incorrect. A gap row, so row 7 is also going to need to be 115 pixels. So to make sure I know where to put the pictures, I'm just going to put the borders in on these cells, right? So put all of the inside and outside borders. So here's the borders selection, and I'm going to drop down and select first of all borders, which draws all the boxes in. And then I'm going to select the outside border as well. And so I can now just copy and paste, I'm using Control V for this, all of those along. There we go, where I want my 10 questions to be. So now I've got a space here for each of my pictures, and then a space for the person to guess the answer, and a space for the computer to detect whether the answer is right. Now, for example, if the picture here was representing a mouse, then I'd want the user to be able to type in mouse here, and I want the computer to detect whether or not that answer is right. So a simple if formula like we've seen before will do that. So equals, because it's a formula, if, open bracket, logical test. Do we want to see whether this cell, A4, equals mouse? So let's just do that. So click A4 equals mouse. Value if true, correct. Value if false, incorrect. Okay, shows correct. If I take the answer out, currently incorrect. It's a little bit of an extension here. If you remember what we did with the binary quiz, instead of it wanting to say incorrect when we haven't even done a guess, it's useful to see whether A4 is nothing and then just print nothing. Otherwise, we actually want to do this test. So what I did before, if you remember, was that I simply selected the if statement just to avoid confusion and pressed Control X, which cuts the text out, but it does remember it. I can use Control V to paste later. So if I build a little if statement that just says, if this cell is equal to nothing, denoted by 2 double quotes, literally joined up together, then what I want to print on the screen, the value of true, is going to be also nothing. So if there's nothing in A4, print nothing. Otherwise, work out whether we're correct or not. Paste. There we go. There's my correct, incorrect formula. So this should now print nothing. And if I put in an incorrect guess in here, like keyboard, I haven't got a picture here yet, of course, it will say incorrect. But if I type in mouse, it'll say correct. Now I'll add a couple of pictures in later, but what we can do is we can copy and paste this formula to the cell next door to here, and we can change the answer that it's looking for to the correct answer for what we're going to be putting in here. So I'm going to put in here keyboard. So this one's going to be looking for keyboard. And I can keep copying and pasting that formula all the way across these cells, the ones at the bottom here, where it's going to respond. I can also, just like we did with the binary quiz, select these cells. I'm using the control key again, you'll notice, to select the ones that I want to use, and I can apply some conditional formatting. Okay, I can find conditional formatting, which is actually this little cell here, and I can go highlight cell rules equal to correct, and select the nice green fill as I did before, and set myself up a little conditional formatting rule to make it look prettier. So the only thing I've got left to do really is to just put some pictures in here. And of course what we don't want is to make the quiz too easy. So I don't want just a mouse and a keyboard. Now a quick lazy approach is to go to Insert and Pictures and select Bing Pictures. And the Bing image search is actually pretty good. So I can type in here mouse. And of course with my vague search here, I've got a pretty good mix of animal ones and computer ones. One thing you can do, of course, is to use things like pictures of things that have the same name as the object. So for keyboard, for example, you could have a small picture of a key and then a picture of an ironing board or something and just put them together. But I'm just going to go simple. I'm just going to go for one of these pictures of a mouse. I'm going to insert that into my spreadsheet. So what I would probably do once I've got it on screen here is to do a screen clip like this and just take out a small part of that picture and then repaste. So I've got a very, very small version of a bit of a mouse, which may be harder to guess. And I can then place that in that area so the person can try and guess what piece of computer hardware that might be. Now for more picture options, you can actually drop into the proper full version of Excel on the local computer. Just drop to editing and open in desktop app. And here it is. So there's my image. And you'll notice on the full version of Excel, we actually have a picture format toolbar here at the top. And this has the option to do things like recolor the picture, which isn't that difficult to spot. But you've also got an option called artistic effects, where you can, for example, pixelate it, or apply other textures, or blur it out. And there's an options section at the bottom, where you can select the artistic effect, and then you can change the settings. Now once you've got your picture, you can also rotate and you can also click crop. And this allows you to get rid of some outside edges, just bring it in closer like I did with my screenshot. And that makes your picture even harder to guess. So let me add in a keyboard image. I'm going to apply a crop to that so it's actually quite difficult to spot what part of the computer this maybe is. And I'll add in a few alternative images. Here we go. So I'll just return to the online version. And I'll put some random correct and incorrect answers in. Right, there we go. So what I want to do is get the computer to automatically count how many corrects we have. So we've got a score here at the top. I can do that anywhere on the same line as the corrects are. Just ask the computer how many corrects there are. It won't surprise you to know this is a formula, of course. Equals. And we're doing some counting. So if we type in count, we get a series of suggested functions, one of which is the one we want. So this function here, count, counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. So you can just find out how many numbers there are. That's not what I need. Count A counts the number of cells that are not empty, and count blank does the opposite. Counts the number of cells in a range that are blank. Countif counts the number of cells within a range that meet the given criteria. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to be using a countif formula. And the first thing it asks for is the range, which is where is it counting. So I'm just going to select across all of these cells where correct could be, and then press comma. And the criteria is what we're looking for. So here I'm going to type in quotation marks, correct. Close the bracket, of course, to make sure it matches. When I press enter, I'm expecting for it to come up with 3, and it does. Of course, exactly the same formula can be copied and pasted on the next line down here. That should do exactly the same thing. So this also has 3 answers. Let's just check it actually changes correctly. If I change the keyboard one into, I don't know, what does this look like? Pothole, all right, like a pothole in a road. Okay, you'll notice that now there's only 2 corrects and we've got an answer of 2 here. If I select undo, it goes back up to 3. So what we can do is we can get the computer just to add up those numbers and put that here at the top. So I'm going to use actually a formula. I'm going to have the text score, colon, space, and we can use the ampersand symbol, this symbol here. It's just above 7 on the keyboard. And this allows us to calculate something and add it on the end of the word score. So I just want to have this cell, J5, plus J9. It's going to add those 2 numbers together. It's going to work out the answer. And it's going to put it onto the end of this string here, this set of letters, score, colon, space. So when I press enter, we should get score 6. And we do. Once again, if I change one of the answers, let's just delete the mouse response. It goes down to 5. So a nice title and a bit of formatting at the top here now needed. And there we have it, final result. Only final thing to do, of course, is to get rid of these secret numbers here that have been calculated. All I need to do is just highlight those cells and colour the writing in white. So white on a white background will make them appear to be invisible. Now this approach to doing a quiz, obviously we're doing hardware because it's computer science, but you could use this approach to produce a quiz for any subject. So think in the next year whether you can dig this out and use it for a project in history, geography, maths, whatever.